your peace of mind, Insurate Group of Companies insure it. Commercial insurance, business insurance, professional insurance, home and auto insurance. आपकी ज़रूरत की हर इंश्योरेंस का ख्याल ट्रक ते डिलीवरी वैन दी इंश्योरेंस भी करने हाँ तुहाडी जुबान बोलन वाले अरशद महमूद 647-686-6465 Branch Manager Insurate Group of Companies with an experience of over 40 years. Call Arshad Mahmood at 647-686-6465 647-686-6465. Are you involved in a car accident? Exercise your legal rights for accident benefit claims.
Accident services at a reasonable charges. Traffic tickets, speeding, careless driving, driving without insurance, red light, and all other driving violations.
We also help in landlord and tenant matters. Our legal team serves you better.
For all your legal needs, call Manan Legal Services at 416-629-8344. 416-629-8344.
Toronto is Canada's largest city and fourth largest in North America. It homes a diverse population of over 2.8 million people. Welcome to Toronto Buzz. I'm your host, Khalid Mahmood Atta. And as usual in this program, you will see a host of different issues and different segments relating to health, beauty, fashion, as well as politics and economics. Let's go to our first segment where Mr. Vince Fiorito is going to be talking about our politics today. Welcome to Toronto Buzz. I'm your host Khalid Mahmood, and tonight we have our special guest, our political analyst Vince Fiorito. Welcome to the show, Vince.
Well, thank you very much, Khalid. I'm happy to be here.
Now, the question for you is a hot-burning issue globally. Now, a lot of people, they follow their own religion and faiths, and certain governments have tried to intervene in their faiths due to whatever reasons, obstacles, and challenges they've had. What's your take on that?
You're talking about the hijab issue.
Yes, the hijab issue and the religious freedom issues.
Well, I feel that that's actually been a wedge issue here in Canada to try to foment discord among Canadians. I'm very proud to be a Canadian, and I feel that the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms is the law of the land, and that we should respect everybody's right to religious freedom. We're a multicultural society. We're not like the United States. The United States is a cultural melting pot where everybody's expected to conform to what is the United States or what is Americana. Here in Canada, we take a different approach to our immigration. We want people to preserve their language and culture and religion. We feel that in Canada, that diversity adds to the richness of life in Canada. So I totally respect everybody's individual rights to freedom of religion, freedom of culture, and freedom of clothing choices, really. And if you read the documentation related to taking the citizenship oath, it's actually recommended that new Canadians taking their oath dress in cultural and religious garb appropriate to their background. So if you're coming from, say from New Zealand or whatever, you would want to wear something that would be indicative of your New Zealand culture that you're bringing to Canada, maybe some Maori symbols. So people coming from a predominantly Muslim country, I would expect them to wear clothing which is appropriate, suitable, what they feel comfortable in. And I really have to admit, I was impressed by that young woman's bravery to be able to stand up to all the people who felt that the Muslim religion and dress is not something appropriate in Canada, which I disagree. Canada is every religion and culture in the world, and Muslim Canadians are just as much Canadians as any other Canadians. I think when they were talking about old school Canadians, okay, we're all old school human beings, and I think that we should love one another and try to understand each other and be peaceful and tolerant, and I think Canada's a model in that area, and I'd like to see Canada remain that way. So yes, I'm impressed by this young lady.
You're watching Toronto Buzz. Toronto has over 14,000 technology companies which employs over 150,000 people. Let's go to our next segment, which is related to our economy, and Badr Shamim is going to be talking about our Canadian economy.
Being a NAFTA country, Canada enjoys a special relationship as it relates to international trade with the United States and Mexico. 80% of everything Canada manufactures currently is exported to different US markets, with Michigan alone as a state having a bilateral trade relationship of roughly $77 billion with Canada. To put that into context, our total trade with India, with the second largest population base in the world, is merely $6 billion a year. Brampton businesses are no different. Out of the 600 exporters in Brampton, 80% are currently exporting into the United States. The high buying power of US consumer and business community, as well as the current low valuation of Canadian dollars, makes the United States an ideal destination for Canadian manufactured products, and even those products in transit from the rest of the world through Canada into the United States. Having said that, with the population growth in GTA, and in particular in Brampton Board of Trade is quite keen in leveraging the diversity within the business community to strengthen our relationships in developing markets such as India, China, Turkey, South Africa, and Pakistan. In recent months, we have hosted a number of high-power delegations from across the developing market spectrum to explore opportunities for different sectors to seek growth for our exporters and manufacturers. Having said that, United States, with its social-cultural environment, its law and order, with its similar business culture, makes a perfect destination in the short term. Brampton Board of Trade, in partnership with the City of Brampton, as well as other regional municipalities in the Greater Toronto Area, will continue to build relationships across the border in down south in different states, ranging from Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania. Further down south, states of California and Florida are also big trading partners for Canadian businesses, and we'll continue to strengthen those relationships in coming months ahead.
Welcome back to Toronto Buzz. Teens need 9+ hours to sleep every night to stay fresh. Let's see what our specialist, Dr. Amita Joshi, has to say about our everyday health.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Amita Joshi Mundanshira, bringing you medical topics of interest that matter to you. So in the previous segment, we had talked about one common kind of cancer in women, breast cancer. And now I'd like to bring up the second common kind of cancer in women, that's cervical cancer. It's in fact the third most common kind of cancer in women, and it is also one of the deadliest cancers for women in developing countries. Why? Why in developing countries? Because they don't implement screening guidelines as well as we do here in North America. So cervical cancer is one cancer I would urge for all the women out there to take care of as soon as possible in terms of screening with your doctor. In the many years of practice, I've seen women who have been totally cured of cervical cancer. So it would be great if you can go to your doctor and get screened for it regularly. What do I mean by screening? It's probably the dreaded pap smear that you're thinking about, yes, but it will save your life. The guidelines in Ontario suggest that anybody under the age of 21 does not need to get a pap smear. This may be case-based depending on your history with your doctor. But definitely over the age of 21, if you're low risk, you need to get a pap smear done every 3 years. And this goes up until age 70. Over the age of 70, you do not need to get a pap smear as long as you have had a normal pap smear in the last 10 years and as long as you do not have a history of cancerous changes. And once it's picked up, anything at all, anything abnormal, even precancerous, you will be referred to a specialist gynecologist who does further tests and even remove that piece of cancerous tissue. So it's a very easy test that can be done in the comfort of your family doctor's office. So don't miss the chance to pick up on anything abnormal that can be cured very easily. Now, cervical cancer is now known to be caused by the human papillomavirus, the HPV virus. And now we are lucky that we do have a vaccination against the HPV virus strains that cause cancer. We do have 2 vaccines available, but the one that's right now available in Ontario through the public funded system is Gardasil. So children, both girls and boys over the age of 9 are getting it in school. So make sure if they are sent home, your children are sent home with a notice of getting vaccinated, please make sure parents do sign off on the sheet so that they can get the vaccines in school. We're trying to target girls and boys before they become sexually active. Now, having said that, if you're way past that age, it's still available to you through your doctor's office. You perhaps just have to pay for it either out of your pocket or through any medical insurance plan that you may have. So there we have it, cervical cancer. We do have a vaccine now to prevent issues with the virus that may cause the cancer. Plus, we do have screening tools. Now, one word of caution, even if you have had the HPV vaccine, make sure you still get your screening done because that's what saves lives. For further information, visit cancercareontario.ca. This is Dr. Amita Joshi Mundanchira. Thank you for watching us.
Welcome back to Toronto Buzz. Sadia Iram is a fitness instructor as well as a Zumba instructor. Let's see what she has to say in our segment, which relates to health and fitness.
Life is quite busy and vibrant in Toronto. To keep your life beautiful and active, we're going to introduce you to Zumba. What is the Zumba about it? The Zumba is a Latin American inspired cardio workout to keep you healthy and beautiful. Let's see, we'll tell you what is it about. It's about dances, which is a different discipline of hip hop, jazz, morangue, and my favorite, African beat. This song, we are going to do it. It's regarding salsa. It's a lot of body movements and it's puts you a lot of concentration in your body and shedding a lot of calories. Consult the doctor because if you're going to try right away, it's gonna emphasize on your body, and please, any kind of exercise, it's not good for your body. You need to consult the doctor first. Let's see how this song, you're gonna like it.
Miss Universe Canada 2008 was awarded to Samantha Tajik. Let's see what she has to say about beauty and fashion.
Welcome to Toronto Buzz. I'm Samantha Tajik. So the beauty trend I wanted to talk about today is mineral makeup. So there's a lot of different companies out there with mineral makeup that you may be familiar with, but one of my favorites is Glow Minerals. So what's different, you might ask? Well, it's great that we have all this new technology to be able to develop products like this, because these products are superior in the sense that they're not as damaging to your skin as normal makeup would be. So if you're usually using a foundation or things like that, you might notice that it's causing you to break out or have dry skin. A lot of that's because of the chemicals and processing that goes into those makeup products. So when you look at these mineral-based products, they're a lot more gentle on the skin. This particular line, I can tell you, has a lot of antioxidants. It has green tea extract, vitamins A, C, E. And actually it's so safe to use on sensitive skin that they do use it on burn victims. So it's a great product line, and like I said, I do use it myself. And just to kind of show you, I don't know if you can really see it, but it has quite a bit of coverage. So for a foundation like that, considering it's not clogging your pores, it doesn't have talc, that's the ingredient that does that. So your skin's breathing and it's getting so much coverage. So that's quite amazing. Another thing I love is that it all looks quite natural compared to some of the products out there. So I think with these mineral-based makeups, they're quite natural looking. So you're still getting all that coverage, but you're not getting that really cakey fake look. So definitely, I think it's something you should try out. You can look into it. Yeah, check that out. We'll see you next time.
This is Toronto Buzz. Foods that don't expire contain preservatives as well as chemicals. Let's see what our nutritionist, Miss Stephanie DiGrazia, has to say about nutrition today.
Hi everyone, thank you for watching Toronto Buzz. This is Stephanie DiGrazia, registered holistic nutritionist, sharing my nutrition and wellness tips with you. So today I'm going to be talking about digestion, some ways that you can reduce gas, bloating, and indigestion, and to promote good digestion so that we can absorb the most nutrients from our food. So first of all, you're going to want to avoid overeating. We have a tendency to fill our plates with much more food than we need, and we don't have quite enough stomach acid and enzymes to break it down, so we're left with a lot of undigested food in our stomachs. Number 2, chew. Chewing is very important because digestion begins in the mouth. If you chew, this decreases the amount of stomach acid and enzymes needed to break down the food so that you can focus on absorbing nutrients. Number 3, don't drink with meals. Try and drink 15 minutes prior to a meal or 15 minutes after, as when you drink too many fluids with your meal, it dilutes your digestive juices, which causes indigestion and an inability for the stomach acid to properly break down foods, especially proteins. Number 4, don't eat in a rush. To properly digest food, our body needs to be in a relaxed parasympathetic state. Try and avoid distractions, sit down, enjoy, and savor your food. Number 5, practice food sequencing. So the concept behind this is eating foods that are much easier to digest first and foods that are much more difficult to digest, like grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, and meats last. This is because if you eat them in reverse order, the foods that are much easier to digest remain in your intestines to ferment and get bacteria growing, and as bacteria feeds off of these foods, and this will cause indigestion, bloating, gas, and other symptoms. Number 6, consider digestive aids. So taking a digestive enzyme is a great way to make sure that you're having enough digestive enzymes, and you can also take a hydrochloric acid supplement. This will help to break down food so that if you need that extra boost, it'll help you to break down food properly. You can also try natural aids such as apple cider vinegar, which helps to promote stomach acid necessary to break down proteins. You can also eat papaya and pineapple, which both contain food enzymes that are necessary for proper digestion, or digestive herbs such as ginger and fennel, which also help to promote good digestion. And finally, move. Get exercising, which is not only great for your health in general, but when you exercise, it helps food to move through the digestive tract and help to burn off excess energy. One of the best exercises for digestion is walking, so grab your loved ones and take a walk after your meal. This is Stephanie DiGrazia. Thank you so much for watching.
Famous philosopher Rumi wrote, "You were born with wings, why prefer to crawl through life?" Let's talk to Ms. Faria Shah and see what she has in store for us tonight as an inspirational talk.
Fariha Shah with you again, the Passion Practitioner. So last week I shared with you that my most favorite poet is Rumi. And today I have another Rumi quote to share with you. And that is, your task is not to seek for love, but rather, and I am paraphrasing, is to find those barriers that we build up against love and break those down. So it's a case of, oftentimes we think that, love should appear, and we don't understand how we ourselves, through our past mistakes, or actually I won't even call them past mistakes, our past learning experiences. I don't believe in mistakes. It's a case of everything that we go through, we either succeed or we learn from it. So it's a case of whatever we have gone through, sometimes it makes us build shields and walls all around us because we don't want to be hurt again, we don't want to fail again, or whatever the situation may be. And it's a case of, our mindset. If we don't use phrases like, or words such as like failing or being hurt, but rather look at the big picture in our lives as, okay, I had to go through X, Y, and Z to bring me to where I am today. It's really a case of just learning through everything that we've been through and coming out better and not bitter from it. And oftentimes we think that, oh my gosh, why am I going through this? But what I've developed in my own life is, I could be crying, it could be a very weak moment of despair, and I just say to myself, this too is serving me. Because everything in life does serve us and serve a purpose in some manner. And things are catalytic experiences to move us forward to adventures or opportunities that we may otherwise not have taken. So let's say in the case of heartbreak, and who hasn't been through heartbreak? A partner leaves us, or we feel rejected, or whatever the case may be. And then, soon enough, we meet someone even better. And it's a case of, wow, if I could love the wrong person so much, how great will my experience be with the right person? So that's just one example. Another example could be when it comes to our career choices. It's a case of we have our heart and mindset on one particular avenue that we want to take, and it's just not working out. Or for myself, I initially started out in finance, and then I actually decided that I wanted a break myself, and I wanted to pursue philosophy and psychology and how the mind works. And it opened up so many avenues for me in a totally different direction. So how does a person go from finance to becoming the passion practitioner? Stay tuned for all of my tips, and you too can live your life of passion.
Welcome back to the show. As part of our regular programming, we do show you interviews of very talented individuals. Badr Shamim is one of them. His background is finance, and he will be talking to us about his life as well as his career in finance. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Toronto Buzz. I'm your host Khalid Mahmood, and tonight we have a very special guest. Once again, we are lucky and honored to have him in our show. He is a finance guy, basically, majorly. He is also the chair of the international service at the Rotary Club. Also the chair of Canadian Pakistani Friends of William Osler, and more importantly, he is the chair of the Brampton Board of Trade. Also works for a private banking institution, which is a very huge institution. Very talented, very versatile. I'm happy to have him on the show. Welcome, Mr. Badr Shamim.
Glad to be here, Khalid.
Thank you. Now, your focus primarily over the last few years have been mostly related to finance, and also you've done some social development, social work. What would you say is your prime forte? Tell us about yourself in terms of, sequence it. What is your prime forte? What is your prime interest? And let's go from there.
So I think the right place to start would be the fact that I'm a first-generation immigrant. I migrated to Canada in 1990 from a small city in Pakistan called Lahore.
Nice. It's not small by any means.
And just like every other immigrant, the primary interest over the years was simply to learn how Canadian society, a participative democracy, a free market economy, operates and how best to integrate in it. And I was lucky enough to actually run into certain mentors along the way who not only introduced me and encouraged me to move ahead in terms of my professional development and business development, but also introduced me to community giving side of things through Rotary primarily and Rotary International.
Right, now finance would be your main focus over the years. Now, did you get proper education for finance, or where did you go to school for that?
I went to Brock University.
Okay, and your major was in finance?
I did major in finance.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, finance is a very broad term. Now, when you even work for an investment advisor group or a bank where you're giving advice in investments, you have to have a huge variation of knowledge in terms of how the economy operates, how people function, and social welfare as well, which becomes part of your experience in terms of recommending people where to invest their monies. So tell us about your investment advisory role and how much work did you have to do for that?
So going back to what I had where I had originally started, my introduction to personal finance and investment planning and financial planning was actually at Brock University. I took an elective called personal finance, and it so happened that the professor was actually a full-time local financial planner in the city of St. Catharines, who ended up actually talking a lot about his day-to-day job and role as he taught us the course. And as a first-generation immigrant, again, looking at my own family's finances and how they were handling things, I was intrigued by the fact that Canadians were taking such a organized, structured approach towards their personal financial management, whereas coming from Pakistan, coming from Lahore, my family was perhaps not as sophisticated as some of the other people around in the class.
Sure.
That's how it started.
Okay, now talking about the immigrants and you being a first-generation immigrant, how difficult or easy it is for people who come to Canada with money to convince them to do institutional investments in Canada, or they usually tend to do their own regular way of investment.
You're absolutely right.
How do you motivate them, or how do you inspire them to get into the Canadian
system?
So
without me naming an individual on a television show, I'll share a story with you. The other day we're in a vehicle with a friend of mine who's a very educated individual, a delightful person to be with, a physician by occupation. But just like me, a first-generation immigrant, and he turns around and he goes to me, well, brother, all these investment ideas that you guys talk about, do they actually make money for people? And I had to think about it for a second to try and analyze as to how best to respond to it. And eventually I said to him, how long have you been in Canada? And he goes, 15 years. And I said, have you seen Tim Hortons branches shutting down over that period of time or growing? He goes, they've been growing. And I said, well, what about TD Bank or Royal Bank branches? And he said the same thing. I said, how long have you been paying your electricity bill? All along. And I said, okay, so if you've been paying these businesses and other people are using these businesses and their services on a regular basis as an investment, do you think that their asset valuations have been growing, if their revenue has been growing or going down? And he said, they've been growing. And I said, there's your answer. And since then, he's actually become a client and he's now investing some money with us, which is fantastic. But point being, that is exactly what fascinated me about this field earlier on. It was the opportunity as a student first to learn about how that sector of the economy operates and how best to actually position myself as a young professional to build a career, and eventually as a participant in that environment, how best to contribute towards its welfare and its growth.
Sure. Now, you recently became the chair of the Brampton Board of Trade,
right.
And we would like to congratulate on that,
thank you.
on acquiring that role. It's a pretty responsible role. You were in a very responsible position. Now, your background in finance obviously works well for you in terms of when you're chairing the Board of Trade. Obviously, there's different sectors of businesses that you're well aware of in terms of knowledge. So how does that relate? I mean, how does your finance background relate to?
It's one and the same.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right in that in my day-to-day job, I'm primarily sitting down with people and having a conversation about what aspects of Canadian economy are strong, what sectors are doing well, where it makes sense for us to actually acquire some assets from a growth perspective, or where we can generate some income from. When I'm having the same conversation with business community members in Brampton, it's the same conversation with the exception of talking to them about how best to network amongst each other, how best to grow that network, how best to complement the existing sectors in the economy. And at the same time, when it comes to international trade, which parts of the world make sense from the growth perspective or from FDI, foreign direct investment attraction perspective.
Right. Now, your role in Rotary Club also Let's talk about that. That's a little bit informal kind of role. I know that you enjoy going out to Rotary and spending your time there with a lot of folks that are also involved with a lot of other community services. Tell us about your role as being the chair of the Rotary International Services.
So my role at the Rotary Club of Brampton currently is that of the chair of the International Service Committee. There's not really a whole lot of difference between Rotary and a chamber, with the exception that the chambers take more hard economic, business, trade-related approach to talking about economic development, whereas Rotarians take a more of a social approach towards doing business. The saying in the Rotary world goes that we all come to Rotary initially perhaps just to get some business from each other, but you don't ask for business, and eventually you end up doing business with each other because you learn to trust and respect each other. The mantra behind being a Rotarian's way of life is that you build good friendships, and as long as you have good, trustworthy friends, and you will then discuss mutually beneficial things, which will eventually lead to you to doing business with each other anyways. Yeah. Business comes in Rotary, you don't talk about it. In chamber, you ask for business first, up front, and then go from there.
Sure. Now, I must ask you this question. This is a very enlightening talk that we're having in regards to your social aspects of life as well as your finance background. Now, how do you find time to manage all this? Like, it's a very wide spectrum of things that you're doing. You're very much involved in the community. What keeps you going and what keeps you motivated, and how do you manage all this?
Yeah, so first of all, I've got a very understanding and supporting wife.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't be able to do actually 80% of what I do. The second aspect is, as I said, the work that I do for a living and the work I do in the community is somewhat intertwined. In many instances, when on the chamber side, I'm actually meeting and talking to some of the businesses that I've also been looking on the investment management side, primarily for investment purposes. So I don't really see a whole lot of difference, and because I don't see a whole lot of difference in that conversation, it just comes naturally.
A lot of folks in our Canadian diaspora are now worried about the inflation. They're also worried about the houses value going down, like we're seeing in Western Canada. They're also worried about job losses. Yeah. So any take on these core economic factors in the near future?
Absolutely. So I wouldn't use the term inflation and rising real estate prices in the same sentence. The reality is that core inflation, thanks to the price of oil and commodities retrenching over the last year, has actually come down. Central Bank of Canada is not really concerned. It's the preview of Central Bank of Canada and the central banks in any part of the developed world in the free market economy to manage inflation. So the band that Canadian Central Bank, for instance, would like to see inflation around would be around 1.52%. 2.5%, whereas currently the inflation is around 0.9% or so. Again, as I said, thanks to the raw input or commodity price input into the matrix. Housing market is benefiting from the fact that low inflationary environment is leading to interest rates being low. Sure. And that, coupled with a very welcoming attitude towards newcomers and a very robust actually redevelopment market, you're seeing a lot of small to medium-sized homeowners moving up to bigger houses and newcomers buying houses very robustly in GTA.
Sure. Now, Canada is the 5th largest wheat-producing country in the world.
Yes.
Now, we see that if you go to a grocery store in anywhere in Toronto, the bread is so expensive. So what's happening? Why can't we just control the prices, the commodity prices, and why is wheat so expensive? Why is bread so expensive in Canada?
So there's two aspects to this conversation. First of all, the price of wheat, as well as every other raw commodity, whether it's edible commodity or actually something that's used in manufacturing, they're not set in one country. They're set in a global market. And so Canada is part and parcel of that global market. We're part and parcel of a global supply chain where our wheat is not just consumed here domestically, it's actually supplied globally. As a matter of fact, I believe wheat-producing nations, traditional wheat-producing nations such as India, Pakistan, are net importers, thanks to the growing middle class in those economies. So while we only have 32 million people, India adds probably 10 to 15 million people every year to a growing middle class, which is increasing the demand for wheat and other edible commodities, which in turn is actually supporting a higher price. That's one aspect of it. Second aspect, I'm pretty sure, has to do with the way the pricing is set by different agricultural associations. And so again, it's a free market economy. The government doesn't get to tell such boards or such organizations as to what price they should set, and that's part of the equation too.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, Badr will be part of our program as well in terms of giving tips in terms of economy and economic development over a period of time, and we appreciate that as well, you being part of our show as well. Now, personally speaking, what is your goal for the next, I know that you are now the Brampton Board of Trade Chair, where do you see the Brampton Board of Trade going in the next few years, and what is your personal aspirations for the next few years?
So Brampton has been one of the fastest growing municipalities across Canada over the years, not just one of the fastest growing economies, but one of the best rated foreign destinations for foreign direct investment by international standards. As a matter of fact, I believe we have been the first or the second best foreign direct investment jurisdictions across the Americas over the years. In that environment, we have seen a very rapid growth of our population. In a very small period of time, we have gone from 300,000 people to roughly 600,000 people. We're actually slated to go from 600,000 to 900,000 within the next 15 to 20 years. With that sort of population growth comes the need to grow jobs. In the absence of job growth and business attraction, what ends up happening is that a lot of your population starts to then commute, which adds to the congestion that we're already seeing in GTA. Mm-hmm. So Brampton is very interested, and Brampton Board of Trade is very interested in advocating with different levels of the government to ensure that we're open to doing business both regionally as well as internationally. And that's our primary focus over the course of the next 12 months.
Now, I have spoken to a lot of folks about you in person. A lot of community members know you in person. Everybody asks me one question: why is he not in politics? So I ask you this question directly: why are you not in politics yet?
I'll give you the honest answer for that. So a long time ago, somebody said this to me, and I didn't take him very seriously. I was very young at that point in time. I think it was in university years. He was, again, a practicing financial planner, and he basically said to me, "Have you heard the term filthy rich?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "There is nothing filthy about money." He said, "Money supports both social and economic development. You want to build a mosque or a church, you need money. You want to build a hospital, you need money." Sure. As a first-generation immigrant, that really sat with me over the years. And so I'm very blunt and I'm very honest. You don't go to politics, and luckily you don't go to politics in North America for making money. I'm here to make money. Sure. And so I'm going to stay focused on the business side of things.
Now, before we close, any final message to the youngsters who are aspiring like yourself, who are going through school right now, and they're thinking of their future ahead? What's your message to them?
Canada is truly a land of opportunity. The term that's thrown around in North America a lot is North American dream. And so Canada offers you to capitalize on that and achieve your own dream as part of a free market economy and a participative democracy. The biggest mistake our youth make is alienating themselves from the mainstream. If it wasn't for the fact that my corporate finance professor in third-year university took our whole class and enrolled us in Canadian Securities course, which is a certification required to enter in the job market, his thinking was, you guys are all going to graduate with a business degree. Well, so what? So many other students will graduate around the province with the same degree. What differentiates you? If it wasn't for a mentor like that, or if it wasn't for a gentleman at the Scotiabank branch in St. Catharines who sat down with me and told me how to fine-tune my resume, I wouldn't be where I am. Sure. If it wasn't for my Rotarian friends, if it wasn't for my chamber friends, I wouldn't be where I am. Learn to be a part of the community, appreciate the people around you, and just relish and enjoy it.
Great. Thank you so much, Badr, for being part of our show. I really appreciate you spending the time and being here with us.
Pleasure is all mine.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I thank Badr Shamim for being part of the show. You're watching Toronto Buzz. I'm your host, Khalid Mahmood. And with this thought that we just shared with Badr, that we have to integrate ourselves with the mainstream, I say goodbye to you from our studio. See you next time. Thank you very much.
#1 multicultural channel. This is TAG TV.